It's Christmas time, a time for friends, family, and most importantly, food. It wouldn't quite be Christmas without turkey or pigs and blankets, but have you considered the impact meat consumption has on our planet? Liz Josie has, as the shop owner of the vegan store Sunrise Organics, talks us through her alternative to the traditional Christmas dinner that she'll be indulging on this Christmas. What are you going to be having on Christmas Day then?
Instead of the dead sentient being on our plate, we're actually going to be having this, which is a vegan nut roast with cranberries and quinoa. Thank goodness is the brand. Why this one is particularly a good one is because it's what's known as, it's just whole foods. So as you can see from the ingredients, there's no weird E numbers, there's nothing that you don't recognise. So it's literally whole foods. There's no nasties, no additives, no chemicals. So that's what we're having in place of our animal. And then we're going to be no doubt having roasted veggies. So in front of us here we have a table of beautiful organic veg. So I'm sure we will be having roast vegetables, we're going to be having parsnips, cabbage, probably some onions. What else do you have? Carrots, swede. Yeah, the usual, same as everyone else. It's only one bit that's different.
Although nut roast might not sound as appealing as your traditional turkey, Liz believes that there are complications of eating meat and that it results in irreversible consequences.
The world is never going to be vegan, I believe that, because we've got indigenous cultures who need meat to survive, that's fact. I think where it's all gone a bit wrong, and I also feel is why there's such a fast rise in veganism, is because of factory farming. As a vegan, this is my own personal beef, for want of a better word, with the meat industry. It's the scale of how much meat is being consumed. It's unsustainable, for one thing, and as Pepper, who works with me, who's out there now, reminded me this morning, is that it takes so much more land to feed, animals for one meal effectively, and we've got a third of the world that's starving. It's kind of crazy. It's all topsy-turvy. So we're feeding, large amounts of animals for, a very few meals, whereas that food that's been fed to those animals could actually feed, lots of communities and a lot of people. So I think if I can separate it, there's always going to be people that want to eat meat. So this shop isn't about whether we should or shouldn't. We're not here to convert people. But I think what I personally like to do is to wake people up to the fact that it's not healthy to be consuming meat. And let's change the word meat for animals, because we're eating animals. That's what we're eating.
We are going to have to learn to eat less meat because it's a very inefficient way of producing food. Very inefficient. So it probably takes 10 times as much to produce a calorie of beef that it takes to produce a calorie, say, of wheat.
That was Ian Green, Senior Lecturer in Biological Sciences, who is also concerned about the sustainability of meat consumption.
If you think about our expanding world population, we need to increase food production by about 50 to 70% by 2050. We're going to have less agricultural land to do that on. We're going to basically have to produce that food using less input, so less pesticides, less fossil fuels. So the only way in which we can really feed people in as little as 30 years' time is if we're more efficient in our use of food. Okay, that also means throwing less food away, but it also means not feeding food that could go to humans, to animals, for meat production. So we are going to have a more vegetarian diet.
However, excessive meat consumption also faces us with other issues, such as pollution, which is on the rise.
About 14% of greenhouse gas emissions come from farming, and about 60% of those emissions are associated with actually growing food in terms of crops. And I guess because maybe about 30% is from actually growing animals. But you also have to think that the crops are also used to feed the animals. So they have quite an impact on greenhouse gas emissions. So the amount of fossil fuels that has to go into producing a cow is quite significant. And then you know much about cows and they're ruminants. So they have bacteria and other microorganisms in their stomach which help them to digest their food. The byproduct of that is they produce methane, which they belch and break wind. And methane is a really potent greenhouse gas. It's about 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So there's a lot of concern about greenhouse gases that come from cows directly, so as well as the greenhouse gases that are required to grow and produce the food we feed them, because they're not all grass-fed.
What I would be wary of is that there's always two sides to every story, and what I have seen of the studies and the literature is that there is mixed. There are some that say that actually a plant-based diet, it would benefit the earth, There are some that say actually it wouldn't, because when you consider, all right, things like cows give off methane, but then growing crops like soy and wheat and all these other plant-based crops, we need to eat a lot more of those to get the nutrition we need, and they take up a vast amount of space. It means cutting down rainforests to grow these crops. So it's not as simple as just saying get rid of the cows. There's always another side to the story. And maybe there's a compromise where you can eat enough animal products to meet your nutritional needs, which maybe isn't quite as much as some people are eating right now. Rather than eating meat, 2 or 3 times a day, eat it once a day, or maybe 4 times a week or something, and then you might be getting everything you need, but you won't be consuming quite as much as you were.
That was nutritionist Pollyanna Hale, who taught me through this argument that we face in today's society. As conflicting facts are constantly churned out, it's hard to decipher what is the truth and what we should listen to. Although, what we do know is that it is an issue we need to act upon.
I think the way to get people to change is carrot and stick and education. So I suppose the carrot really is through education, is pointing out to people that they will be healthier, that they are doing something with the environment, and the stick, yes, taxes, because people need a push, I think, to make them change their lifestyles.
It is apparent that a plant-based diet could make a difference to our planet, but would it be as sustainable as campaigners have made it out to be? The surge in veganism could show that efforts made to combat the issues that are believed to have come from meat consumption, but it is not certain if this is the right solution.